Hi there, welcome to Planning Ahead, developing your plan to study abroad for the spring 2023 semester. My name is James, I'm one of the coordinators with Ucf Abroad, and I'll be guiding you through this PowerPoint today. An overview of what we'll be talking about today, self-assessment and study abroad 101, advising sessions, making a funding plan, and then the application process. So self-assessment and study abroad 101, we kind of do at the same time in agreement with each other. The study abroad 101 info session is actually going to contain all of your basics, information about the different types of programs that we offer, the process at UCF, all these kind of good nuggets that you need to get a solid foundation to start researching and planning. After that, you want to think about doing a self-assessment to narrow it down to the program that you're going to apply to. Part of that process, you want to review your degree audit, you want to plan to meet with your academic advisor, and then you want to make a list of about 2 to 3 programs that you could potentially apply to get to the one which is going to be the best fit for you. So in thinking about that, you want to think about when you want to study abroad, where you'd like to study abroad. If you're having a hard time thinking about where, you can think about maybe the climate or the language that's spoken there. If you'd like to learn a new language or if you have experience with a language already. You want to think about your budget, so you're picking a program that makes sense for you financially. You want to think about the courses that you're going to take abroad and if they fit with your degree requirements. And then you also want to think about the impact it will have on your future career. Part of studying abroad as a high impact practice is making sure we're rounding out our collective experience or skill set so that when you go to apply for graduate school or your future career, you're a much more well-rounded applicant and you can speak a little bit more deeply about your experience in the field than your cohort of students that are just recently graduating that might not have done a high impact practice. So in your advising sessions, what do you want to ask? You'll be fortunate to have actually a couple different advisors in your corner throughout this process. Your academic advisor, but also your UCF advisor, your UCF Abroad advisor rather. So you want to think about your timeline to graduation. We don't recommend studying abroad in your senior year if possible because of a few different reasons. Most of those have to do with your transcripts from your host institution coming back in time to meet your graduation certification deadline. The university also has a requirement that you're not able to be a transient student, which basically means taking courses at another institution in your graduating semester. You'd also like to think about courses at UCF. Do you have to take courses at the university? For example, that have a specific lab component or a specific professor or knowledge or skill set that your home department is requiring you to take? Or are there courses like electives, language courses, internship, things that can be done abroad? Speaking of internship, does it make more sense for you to do an internship or coursework? And do we want to do a full semester abroad, which is 4 to 5 classes? Or do we want to do just a short-term summer 1 to 2 classes? And that can actually tie into the program fee, how much your program is and what is a realistic financial goal for you. You also want to confirm with us that the program you picked makes sense. It's great to pick a program that you're excited to go to, but we want to make sure that the courses are robust for you, that are going to help you meet degree requirements, that are going to be helping you rather than hurting you towards your progress towards graduation. Along those lines, we want to think about the excess credit hour surcharge. If you don't know what that is, you can do a quick Google search for UCF excess hours, and you can find a page from the registrar's office which explains it. But essentially, it is a surcharge on your tuition, which doubles the cost of the tuition, basically, within any hours over your baseline number of hours for your degree. So we want to make sure we're not going into excess hours. From there, we want to create a funding plan. We're lucky to have a contact in financial aid that you can reach out to via the email listed here, sfastudyabroad@ucf.edu, to discuss what financial aid you're receiving now and what's applicable, and any forms that are due. You want to think about which scholarships you're receiving and if they're applicable towards the type of program that you're applying to. So UCF In and UCF Exchange programs typically will accept all types of scholarship or financial aid, versus a partner program or internship is going to have some types applicable, but not all. Typically, Bright Futures or UCF specific scholarships are not applicable towards partner programs and internships. You also want to think about your disbursement timeline, right? So when are you going to get your funding versus when do you need to pay? With scholarships, they're going to have their own separate application deadlines and requirements, as well as eligibility requirements. And you also want to make your funding plan with including scholarships and one without. So you want to have a backup in case you don't receive those scholarships that you've applied to. Then you want to look at your program's fees and inclusions. So what do your program fees cover? What out-of-pocket costs are you going to have to pay for? So things that are typically not included are going to be your flight and then your meals. So those are things that you want to budget for as well. At this point, you're ready to start your application, and it's better to get an application started sooner rather than later because it'll trigger us to reach out to you, but you also want to make sure you're reaching out to your UCF Abroad advisor very regularly to make sure you're meeting deadlines, you're making progress on your application, and that you're not going to be withdrawn from the program. We do run periodic audits, and we withdraw students that after the application deadline are not making progress, that have not met their pre-decision requirements, things like that. Your program might require 2 applications, especially if it's a partner program. You have a separate application you have to complete with that provider. So for example, TEAN, the Education Abroad Network, USAC, API, AIFS, DEA, CIS Abroad, those are all providers that you would need to submit a second application with. They're going to have their own deadlines, so make sure you're paying attention to those as well. UCF Abroad applications will have 2 phases that you'll move through. So pre-decision phase, which involves just some initial documents and then also getting your course approvals started. And then you would commit to the program, which you don't want to do until you're absolutely sure that the courses are going to help you, that you have a funding plan in place, you know when you're going to get your financial aid and when your due dates are. You don't want to commit to a program if you don't know those things, you're not sure, or if there's any chance that you're having a hard time with making a decision on that program. After you commit to the program, you will be in the post-decision phase, which mostly has information about health and safety and helps us stay in contact with you when you're studying abroad. My recommendation to all my students is to keep a Word document or Excel sheet or a Google Sheet, Google Doc, things like that, and just keep one to keep track of everything. You can put your to-do items there, you can put in all of your different deadlines, your frequent links or pages that you want to check out later. I know sometimes you're looking at things in between classes, or you just don't have the mental energy to deep dive into something, so grab that link and throw it on your Word document so you can come right back to it and not lose any progress. On top of that, eligible scholarships and their specific deadlines and requirements. And then next steps. My recommendation is give yourself 1 a week. I know you're probably working on top of taking classes, you have a social life, you've got things that you want to do outside of your application, so just try to get 1 thing done per week. So let's talk important deadlines for the spring 2023 semester. The UCF Abroad application deadline for most programs is going to be October 15th, 2022. That's going to be for partner programs. The exchange program deadline is actually much earlier than that. It's July 15th, 2022. So you can see the little asterisk down there at the bottom. You want to make sure that you are verifying your application dates. Some programs differ, like exchange programs, they're going to be a lot earlier. You want to verify that by clicking on the Programs Apply Here tab of our website and then looking at the specific program that you're applying to. But in general, by your application deadline, you should have met with your Ucf Abroad advisor to confirm that your program makes sense for you and to review any questions that you might have about that application process. And then you want to have started the course approval process and or received the results on your course approvals by that time. The commitment deadline, again, we want to make sure that we have our funding plan in place and you know when your payment due dates are and when you're going to get your aid dispersed to you. Notice that those are very, very close to each other. So I recommend setting an early deadline for yourself for application, about a month early if you can, so that you've got plenty of time to make a smart commitment decision so that you're not committing to a program that is going to put you in a bad position. If you have a second application, you should have started it by our commitment deadline and ensure that you know when your deposit due date is with the provider. So those are all things that you can verify on the provider's website. Now would be a good time to pause the presentation and make a little progress. Start that Word document, write down your 2 UCF Abroad deadlines, and then you want to list the major milestones that are going to be before your application deadline, between your application deadline and commitment deadline, and then things you need to get done after your commitment deadline. So some quick examples for you on the right here. Your passport can take 6 to 8 weeks. If that's expedited, it's usually about 12 weeks if you're applying for it regularly. That funding plan we talked about, having those meetings with your advisors, course selection and course approval and disciplinary clearance should all be done before your application deadline. Your payment deadline, the UCF Abroad fee, the program deposit, the program fee, all of those things, your aid, when that's going to get dispersed to you versus when your program fees are due, you want to think about those before your commitment deadline. And then after you've committed your program, your application is accepted, you want to think about your housing confirmation at your host institution abroad. You want to think about your housing plans for here in Orlando. Like if you are renting an apartment and you're in a 1-year contract, are you going to sublet? Are you going to do a lease swap with someone? Think about that. And then you want to do a confirmation of enrolling in your courses at your host institution. When is that deadline? What does that process look like? And then finally, flight booking, vaccinations as needed. And then currently with the COVID-19 pandemic, we do have a COVID test requirement, which is 72 hours before your departure, you need to get a PCR test and upload that to your application. So again, if you need to, you can go ahead and pause the screen right here and kind of work this up. That is basically it for us today. The process is going to be pretty similar for any semester that you're looking at. So I do recommend, again, making that Word document or Excel sheet and moving through those requirements based around your deadlines. If you do have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We're here to help you out. Best way to do that is by emailing us at studyabroad@ucf.edu. You can also check out our Facebook and Instagram pages at UCF Abroad for any upcoming scholarship notifications or deadlines, or even some fun student content with students that are currently abroad. Thank you again for taking the time to view this presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.